Okay. Well, whiskey fans, welcome back to Whiskey Minute with the Highlander. In this episode of the Whisky Gods, we have with us Caitlin Bartlemay, the head distiller from Hood River Distilling.
Yeah, Master Distiller at Hood River Distillers and Clear Creek Distillery.
Both. And the maker of a wonderful single malt that we're going to try today. We're going to try out the McCarthy's 6-year, if it'll stay on camera. No, it's just not cooperating at all. This is a PX sherry cask finish. We're looking very forward to trying this. But let's get started with a wee bit of historical data, because McCarthy's being the first American single malt. And you and McCarthy's will be at the Galaxy Whiskey Gala this year, March 29th in Austin, Texas.
Yep, absolutely.
Of that. So tell us a bit about the American single malt and how they became the first.
Well, Clear Creek Distillery was actually founded in 1985 by a man named Steve McCarthy. And the original idea was to create American brandies out of the bounty of the Pacific Northwest that would rival their European counterparts. So the initial lineup was pear brandy, apple brandy, cherry brandy, and blue plum brandy. The apple, of course, being aged and the others being released as a clear spirit. And on subsequent trips to Europe, Steve had fallen in love with the Islay-style Scotch whiskey. And with Portland, Oregon being in many ways the epicenter of American craft brewing, on the plane ride home, he was thinking, well, I've got this little brandy distillery, and certainly there's plenty of barley that grows in Oregon, and there is actually peat bogs in Oregon as well. Wouldn't it be amazing if I could find a craft malt house that would make an Oregon single malt in following the style of an Islay style single malt? Unfortunately for him, the few malt houses that were around at the time weren't willing to take that project on, because as we all know, that peat reek is pretty powerful. And so every craft beer that would have come out of Portland after that would have probably been a little smoky. And so he wasn't able to find a local malting company to help take on that project. But he was able to import peat malted barley from Scotland, which is what we still do today. And the first distillation was early January in 1994, and the first release was in 1998, which makes McCarthy's the first American single malt. And as of December 18th, we're officially ratified within our own country as a category with rules and everything. So we join. There are 41 countries that produce single malt around the world. There are now, I think that makes us 22 or 23 of those countries have officially recognized rules for the category to both protect the category, but also to inform consumers on what to expect when they buy a bottle of single malt off the shelf. And with over 900 distilleries making it around the world, America accounts for just over 250 of those. So definitely American producers have been excited about the category for decades now, but clearly American consumers and global consumers are excited about it as well.
There's a lot in what you just said.
I know.
just the fact that this wee short time ago, this was the first one, and now there are 250, over 250 making it. That's amazing.
And all of it, like I want to make sure credit where credit is due. The reason that we're now ratified is because of the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission and all of our hard work. There are over 100 distilleries that are commission members, and Steve, who has been the president of the American Single Malt Commission for its entirety, as far as I know, Steve Hawley, is the reason that we can celebrate now our ratification, because it took really a big chunk of us producers to come together and not only decide the rules that we felt were important, that really encapsulated the definition of what we were doing in a way that gives it some structure and some accountability to consumers, but also makes it open for and easy for new entrants in the field, because we definitely wanted this to be something that even more producers would come to. We didn't want to make it exclusive. We wanted to make it inclusive. So absolutely huge thanks. We are commission members, but again, huge thanks to the fact that all of us commission members came together to really see this through to get us actually ratified. So
yeah, bloody amazing. Been working on it for quite a while.
Yeah, since 2016.
So I guess the next area we'd like to ask you to talk about is you. You are quite young, and you're the head distiller of America's first single malt.
Yeah, actually, as of I'm almost a year into my first year being a master distiller.
You're bloody grand. So, where'd you come from? How did you get here?
Well, I grew up in the desert east of Oregon on a wheat farm, and my dad fell in love with fermenting things when I was in middle school. And I was, as many farm kids know, when you're a farm kid, you're essentially an employee. So I started driving tractor and working on equipment at a very, very young age. And so when Dad decided to start fermenting grapes in the basement, I got a crash course in how fermentation works. And lucky enough that I have an amazing college university here in Oregon. Oregon State University has a really renowned food science program that includes not only a viticulture and enology program, but now actually has a master's program for distilling, which unfortunately for me started right after I graduated. But I went to Oregon State and got my food science degree, and during my time there, fell in love with the idea of distilling and the fact that at the time, which I mean, it was only nearly 15 years ago, the amount of consumer transparency that we have now as far as how everything is made just didn't exist back then. You couldn't go to a brand website and learn what kind of stills they use, what their mash bill was, how their, the kind of fermenters that they use, and what the yeast strain was. None of that kind of information was available. And the distilling world still kind of leans towards it being an apprenticeship style learning opportunity where you might get your feet wet, but you get an opportunity to get your foot in the door and work in the tasting room, work on the packaging line, do what you can to start learning, with your boots on the ground. And so that's what I did. I called every distillery in the Pacific Northwest, which was 12 at the time. And Clear Creek Distillery never told me to stop calling. And I was very fortunate to be hired the day after my last final at Oregon State. And I started on the packaging line like a lot of us do. And within 6 months, I was on the stills. Within a year, I was the logistics coordinator, taking on not only production jobs and distilling jobs, but also doing all the domestic and some of the international shipping. And then we went through an acquisition by Hood River Distillers in 2014. And a subsequent move from Portland to Hood River. And in that time, I was promoted to barrel room coordinator and then head distiller. And as of last year, master distiller.
Wow.
That's very impressive.
That's very impressive. And that you've been at the same place for the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
That's not.
Was your dad fermenting wine back in the day when you were on the farm, or was he?
Oh yeah, no. When I was in middle school, a friend of his had been fermenting wine, and then Dad tried it and was like, "Wow, that's really cool. I think I'd like to do that." And so, he started out making. I think that we made like some raspberry wine and some strawberry rhubarb wine. So it was very, very like Dad's fermenting things in basement style things, and they were very good. And then. From there, he went on to actually making some small batch grape wines, and then eventually loved it so much, and all of his friends talked him into starting a vineyard and a winery. So the wheat farm I grew up on, we actually ended up planting 2 acres of grapes in the middle of the high desert in Eastern Oregon, and started a winery and a vineyard. And I think realistically, the biggest problem was that of timing, because the wine industry, the mid-tier wines in the housing crisis, 2008, and then the housing, bubble and everything, people that were able to afford a $25 bottle of wine instead were buying that $7 or $12 bottle of wine at the grocery store. And the people that can afford a $50, $70, $100 bottle of wine could still afford that. And so it was their mid-price wine that really took the biggest hit. And that's right where our wines were. So, coupled with that and the fact that their free labor went pro, they closed the winery in 2010.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
We're now going through basically that same thing.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, yeah.
The last 2 years have been rough.
Mm-hmm.
So we are fans of smoked whiskey.
Excellent.
John and I especially are fans of Lefroy, Lagavulin, and Ardbeg.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think with now the anticipation building, we should jump into this fall.
Yeah. And remind me, Steve, I believe you got to try it when we met in Texas, but have John or Carl tried this yet?
No, John and Dennis have not.
Fantastic.
And for me, that was November.
Oh, was it November? I can't, honestly, I couldn't remember if it was November or December when I was down there for the Whiskey Festival.
Yeah, that was the Whiskey Social in Houston. That was November.
Oh, okay.
Middle of the month of November. So John has a sample.
Yeah. The color. Now this is a sherry cask.
Yeah, so it's a Pedro Jimenez sherry cask, finished, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 months. We're not trying to over sherry it or over finish it. We're just trying to use that finishing cask as an opportunity to kind of nudge and accentuate some of the flavors that are already within that whiskey. So
yeah, it has a beautiful color. I mean, the bottle, the sample I have, it's a beautiful color. You can definitely tell it has a sherry, sherry note to it.
Yeah. So McCarthy's traditionally and is still made with 100% peat malted barley that we import from Scotland. We're distilling them. We're distilling that wash, or the wash is made with a brewing partner. So through the history of McCarthy's, we've always worked with a brewing partner because the lion's share of what we make here at our distillery is fruit brandies and fruit liqueurs. All of our equipment is mostly winemaking equipment, and unfortunately, McCarthy's isn't so big that it's made it worth the capital investment for our own brewery alongside all of our winemaking equipment. But a big portion of what we find important here with Hood River Distillers and Clear Creek is being an active part of our community. And so with the McCarthy's wash, we're actually working with a local brewery to brew that wash for us, which is actually pretty common with American single malt, that you're working with a brewery partner because you already have to have all this equipment to be a distillery and all the barrels and the time it takes to bring to maturity. To add on an entire brewery on top of that makes it pretty expensive. So right now, the bottle that you're drinking, our partner for that production is Double Mountain Brewing here in Hood River, Oregon. And they've been our partner, I believe, since 2016 in brewing all of the wash for us. And then it's distilled a single time in our Arnold Holstein brandy stills, and cut to proof with our glacial fed spring water, or cut to barrel strength with our glacial fed spring water, and then aged in 100% Oregon oak casks. And those are between 200 and 223 liter casks. We recently switched to a smaller cask size just for safety. They stack better. And they're traditionally racked. So they're stored on their sides in our barrel room. And then that one was the 6-year McCarthy's, which was then pulled and then put in those beautiful Pedro Jimenez sherry casks.
For about 6 months.
Yeah, for about 6 months. We because we're small and because we're craft, you pretty much do everything the hard way, but sometimes that works out to our advantage because that means we get to check in on those barrels every couple weeks to make sure that they're not going to get over extracted. So with every finish that we do, because we're also working with a larger company on the Trails End finished bourbon line, we take the time to make sure that we're listening to the spirit and letting it tell us when it's ready. So there's not like all right, it's been 6 months, we're going to pull that whiskey out. If it's been 6 months and it's telling us that it needs more time, then it needs more time. And if it's been 4.5 months and it says, get me out of here, I'm done, then it's 4.5 months that time around. So
this particular bottle is cask strength, so we're looking at 112.2 proof or 56.13 ABV.
Correct.
As John mentioned, that lovely dark golden orangey color. What do you two want to tell me? What are you getting on the nose on this one?
Well, I'm getting a little bit of a smoke there, but a nice sweet smell. And I've tasted it, so I'm getting a little bit of a molasses.
Yeah. Like a sticky toffee pudding with some dark molasses over it. And that light peat smoke is like you stepped out on the edge of the lock in the morning and that rolling smoke is coming out. And it's not too heavy, not too thick, but just a nice light smoke.
Yep. No, we often describe the smoke characteristic as, campfire smoke, but from a distance when the air is cool and a little damp. So when you're talking to Americans, we usually say old growth forest. And to add texture to it, I'll say you're close enough to the campfire to hear your friends laughing, but far enough away that you can't tell what they're laughing about.
You've got the stories. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So we're not laughing at you, we're laughing with you.
Yeah.
That's important.
Right.
I can't find this is cask strength though, because it's a nice smooth. It's a nice velvet like finish, and
Mhm.
it's a very smooth and sips well.
It does. It has a delightful little burn up front, and then it just goes down. It just warms my throat as it goes down. I mean, it's I'm tasting it up front, and then I'm getting that nice warm, soothing spirit as it goes down. So I would say it's fairly complex. It's not. I'm getting more like the molasses, almost spicier as opposed to, as Steve refers to the orchard fruit sometimes. I'm not getting the apples and the pears,
Mhm.
it's in the delightful smoke though. It's not, as you say, it's not overpowering.
Mhm.
Right.
It's,
On the palate, that molasses that to me smelled a bit like sticky toffee pudding becomes more of a treacle, almost a black treacle,
Mhm.
with hints of the spice from a rum.
Mhm.
And then the fig that I got on the nose kind of disappears into spiced prunes.
Wow. But I like
yeah,
that.
I've got some aged rums here at home, and I was in Antigua and in Barbuda, and there's a little bit of similarity there.
We've got a
As
wee
Steve
hand,
mentioned.
put 3 drops of distilled water in and see how that changes it up a bit.
And as far as the McCarthy's lineup goes, we do have another sherry cask finish that's an Oloroso sherry cask finish that comes same bottle, same looking label, but the background of the label is navy blue. We also have a 6-year-old that's just the straight 6-year-old McCarthy's. That's a maroon label, and that's at 100 proof. And then the original flagship, the 3-year McCarthy's, which is what we originally released in 1998, that is in a cream background and is at 85 proof. And then it's interesting that you mentioned rum. We have a few bottles left on our website available to buy only from the website. That was a specialty rum aged McCarthy. So it's McCarthy's new make that was aged for just shy, I think 7 years in a Casa Magdalena rum cask. And so when you talk about some of those rum characteristics that you're picking up, it obviously is accentuated a great deal by having spent its entire aging time in that rum cask. But the Casa Magdalena rum is made from high test molasses. So it's sugarcane juice that's been heated and evaporated to the point where the crystals have begun to form and the crystals and molasses have begun to separate, but the crystals have never been spun out of the molasses. So it's a very sugar heavy, but you get some of those kind of molasses flavors. So it's this really beautiful balance between a more traditional rum made from molasses and an agricole rum that still has some of those fruity, floral, kind of lemongrass notes as well. And so that addition to the McCarthy's was really fun when you talk about the kind of old growth forest, kind of pine needle earthiness of the peat, as well as that kind of damp, subtle, distant smoke to go with all those rum characteristics. So if you're interested, that is only available online, and there's maybe a couple cases left. So
What piqued my interest the most of what you just said is
I'm right back.
to do a side-by-side of the 6-year PX and the 6-year Oloroso.
Mm-hmm.
We just a couple weeks back did Ben Riach. Now I'm totally off camera. I tell you, the bloody technology. I think it's the Chinese getting even for TikTok. The Ben Riach 2009 bottled 11 years later. This one was finished in an Oloroso. and then Jason has the one that was finished in a PX. They're exact same, everything except which cask they were finished in. We were amazed at the vast difference in the two.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So you could do the 6 year that's just aged in, or that's just aged, but aged entirely in Oregon oak. And then we've got the 2 sherry cask finish and then that specialty rum cask finish. And so it's all 6-year-old McCarthy's. But as you go from one to the other, it's a huge difference in the experience that you get for the flavor and aroma. And when it comes to the Oloroso, it's as well. It's a cask strength offering at 112, just over 112. That is the first ever blend by one of our distillers, Garrett Trotter. And it is currently the highest rated single malt in the history of the Whiskey Advocate. Wow. So that's pretty cool as well. That was a smaller production than the Pedro Jimenez sherry cask finish. But it's really exceptional. And again, when we talk about these finishes that we're doing, you know, the barrels that we selected to go into these sherry cask finishes, we were choosing things that were going to do really well with the Pedro Jimenez, just like we chose barrels that would do really well with the Oloroso. So where the PX has that kind of rich, fruity, oxidative quality to the sherry itself, the Oloroso is a much drier, more tannic, oxidized, kind of balsamic and earthy sherry. And so those are the kinds of barrels that we chose to then go into those. So we're really trying to lean into celebrating kind of these more niche portions of McCarthy's as it ages, because, you know, McCarthy's as a whole has a taste. And when you're picking out single barrels, you're picking out barrels that are special because you can get some of these kind of interesting flavors and aromas that you maybe lose in the larger blend. And so when we're doing these sherry cask finishes, it's an opportunity for us to, again, highlight some of those really interesting flavors and aromas that an individual barrel or barrels of McCarthy's can get you, that a whole huge blend and the profile of the base McCarthy's can't really celebrate.
Will you have those with you at the gala?
Probably won't have the Oloroso, but I can try. But the rest, the Oloroso and the rum finish, probably not. But I can try on the Oloroso.
I don't need enough Oloroso for the crowd, just for us.
Yeah. But definitely, I'll have the 3 and the 6 and the Pedro with me. Absolutely.
So we will, of course, all 3 be at the gala.
Yes.
I run it, so I have to be there. Colonel is one of the co-directors of the charity, so he kind of sort of is preferred to be there.
They have whiskey there, I understand. So makes it very attractive. It's a great cause, and it's a great event. So glad that you're going to be coming to Texas and joining us.
Oh, I'm so excited.
For the band, this year we have a dual focus. We're focusing on American single malt and women in whiskey, of which we have Caitlin Bartlemay, who is an American single malt maker and a woman in whiskey. With this, we discussed earlier, quite the background. So we're really excited about that, and I will have my article to Whiskey Magazine and American Whiskey Magazine at the end of the month. So we're hoping that's going to come out. You're one of the features in that article.
I appreciate it a great deal.
We thank you for participating in that. So my next set of questions goes to the casks. You said you're using Oregon casks?
Yeah, Oregon oak casks, Quercus Garryana.
And
is there a char?
No, they're all medium toast. We are in general not a char house. So the French oak barrels that we're using for our apple brandy and our wine brandy for Clear Creek, those are all medium toast French oak barrels. And then the Oregon oak that we're using for our McCarthy's are medium toast Oregon oak casks.
Have you tried any charred ones?
We have. We didn't like it. It's much better with, Oregon oak is a pretty big and aggressive oak choice. There's a reason that it's rarely used 100% and is usually a portion of the total casks put into a blend. But McCarthy's is a really big and bold spirit. And so up against something that's also a big and bold wood choice, what should be a war ends up being this really nice balance and celebration. But we prefer the medium toast over any kind of charring on the inside of that barrel. The balance, there needs to be a balance between the bitter and the sweet And with the peat flavor and the whiskey, it alone can be a little bitter. And so with that toast layer, it is a really nice balance of the flavors and that you're going to get in that whiskey.
And that oak is more porous?
It is more porous. It also it's a bit more it's just a bit more full flavored. There's a lot of stuff going on in that Oregon oak, and it's also a difference. I mean, we're all familiar with the majority of aging casks, especially like American oak. You could say you get some of your almonds, a little bit of lime, and some coconut, right? And occasionally some dill, but that's a whole nother story. When you're talking about French oak, it digs a little bit more into like I should say American oak usually has quite a bit of vanilla, but it's like it's a more oxidized and kind of richer, more rugged vanilla. French oak, you have some of those light baking spices, your cloves, your nutmegs, your cinnamons, whatever, and then like a really light, more kind of floral vanilla. Hungarian is just like all of those things, but punched up a notch. Your Mizunara, your Japanese oak, you're going to get some of that, like some teakwood and some, some sandalwood and some of those kind of tea spices. Your Ambriana is going to be really heavy in the cinnamon. So there's always these kind of, it all tastes like oak or wood, but there's these kind of subtle differences in what you can expect. And with Oregon oak, it changes the citrus profile. So instead of being lime like American oak, it's more like burnt orange peel. And the vanilla quality is much more like an even more robust vanilla. So it's kind of like a nice oxidized fermented Madagascar vanilla. So like a little bit more clove, and it also contributes a little bit, especially that toast layer, to there's kind of like a roasted hazelnuts, like a roasted fatty nut component that also comes through from the wood as well. So it's just a little bit different than what one might expect from that American oak. And because of the wood structure, it has soft tyloses, and so we're not much like French oak. And so we're not having to char the wood to damage the wood enough to get that to allow for the spirit to go into the wood grain, because as the wood cures in the yard, those soft tyloses are getting broken down, as well as those tannins, more aggressive tannins, being washed away by the yard seasoning. And so the spirit is able to get in and out of the wood grain fairly easily, versus American white, which has hard tyloses. It really requires that char level to damage the wood enough to get some movement into the wood itself.
Well, with the wine production in the Willamette Valley, I mean, you've got a good source of. There's lots of cooperages in Oregon.
Well,
I take it, right?
There are a few cooperages, but there's really just the one big one for Oregon oak, Oregon Barrel Works in McMinnville. We've been working with Rick Ferrari since day one. Yeah, because a great deal of wine production is still going to be French oak, because that's what you do, right? There's a reason that French cooking seems to be, or French cooking practices kind of have perforated and proliferated around through all the different cooking styles. So too has French oak and French oak casks. So I would say there's not a whole lot of wineries, I think, anymore that are aging in Oregon oak. It's still predominantly French oak barrels.
Interesting. Well, I love Oregon Pinot.
Explain why I got orange peel.
Mm-hmm.
In the review that I wrote of this, the post after we were done, I had put the hints of orange peel in there.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what's fun. So I've mentioned once before that we do Pacific Northwest finishes on a sourced bourbon line. The brand is called Trails End. So we're buying an 8 or a 10-year-old Kentucky bourbon, and then for the 8, it's toasted Oregon oak staves, and then for the 10, it actually goes into whole Oregon oak barrels, so that you get some of those oxidative reactions as well, and it takes a bit longer to finish. But what's fun with those is that because they've been aging for 8 or 10 years in the American oak, you get some of that coconut, some of that lime and everything like that, and those harsher vanillas. And then the balance with the Oregon oak, it really kind of changes up the citrus profile that you expect in that bourbon, and also sands off some of the higher notes that some might call like rubbing alcohol or nail polish remover, something like that sometimes bourbon has. And so that's kind of a real fun celebration of what you can get with these kind of collaborative finishes between these different genuses and species of oak. I should say different species.
Bring it in Trails End with you?
I can bring some Trails End with me, absolutely.
That would be grand. since the gala is about 45% single malt or Scotch, 45% bourbon, that would be bloody grand.
Yeah.
Stephen, I looked at Total Wine, and there's no distribution yet in Texas with McCarty's, then, right?
Yeah, McCarthy's is definitely in specs, and so is Trail's End for sure.
Oh,
I'm not
okay, so we're in specs then. Okay,
yeah, definitely
awesome.
in specs. And we are, I believe, in Austin with Austin Shaker should have most of our SKUs. So
the retail or the Class B?
Huh?
Austin Shaker retail?
Yes.
Okay. If I can get them over to S2 Spirit Solutions, we'll get them in a lot more independent. This is just a divine dram for the afternoon.
Yeah, enjoying that.
And the cask strength is just so perfect.
Yeah, we really, we dabbled with testing a few different proofs when we were deciding on where to put it, and we just, as a team, loved it so much at cask strength that's where it ended up.
Did you try her yet, John?
Oh, yes. Most definitely.
He thought he was baking bread.
Yeah.
He was in the back drinking the rest of it.
My head is burned. Yeah, this is just divine. And
no, it's a very nice whiskey. You've done a good job. I really, like I say, I like Steve and I like a smokier style, peatier style. Yet this is, as you say, is not overpowering. It has a delightful burn, which I really like, and then it just dissolves and just warms your palate as it goes down. So
when you've got your glass empty, it's got that light,
like
sweet smoke in the glass. It's almost like a toasted caramel.
yeah.
With sprinkling of orange and treacle, and that smoke just comes wafting through it. I have to have a wee bit more of that. Colonel?
Absolutely. Let's make it an afternoon.
Well, it is Wednesday.
And the flavor changed just a bit with the water. Open it up a bit.
Okay. But I think 3 drops of water was perfect.
Yeah, when I poured mine, I went ahead and just added a couple drops of water, which I normally do. It just opens it up a little bit.
It's just a nice change.
But I didn't use any ice cube. I just drank it as is. I didn't add any ice to it.
If any of you young men occasionally enjoy a cigar, it's fantastic with a cigar.
Yeah, these two gentlemen do.
The funny thing is you admitted to that, Caitlin.
Yeah.
We might have to do that after the show.
Yeah. Once every 6 months, usually on the solstices, the distillery team, Everett Rubin and Garrett Trotter and I, we don't tell the higher ups, but we quit early and we share a cigar in the parking lot. And the rule is you get to have a dram of anything in the building. So experiments or special reserve barrels or whatever you want to have in that snifter, you get to have a 1 ounce pour and enjoy it in the parking lot with a cigar. And for a very long time now, it's just been the Pedro Jimenez sherry cask finish of the McCarthy's.
It's a great bonding experience, isn't it?
Oh, no, it's fantastic, and to spend the time kind of ruminating over the previous 6 months and then also kind of planning for the next 6 months and what that might look like as a team. So plus we're in kind of like an industrial area, like a not really industrial area, but for Hood River it is. And we're on the end of the cul-de-sac. So there's a couple of van companies that build kits to make your camper van. But next to us is a construction company. And they start earlier than we do. We start at 7. They start, I think, at 6:30 or 6. So they're usually coming back from the job with all their heavy equipment. And we're in the middle of the parking lot in like rolly office chairs with cigars and snifters, and yeah.
A lot of interaction. Well,
there's a lot of friendly jabs that get thrown across the apartment or the parking lot between both parties. So it's a lot of fun.
But this moment, there are 4 planets visible this evening.
Yes, that's right. For the next few days.
It's a grand time to be enjoying a wee dram and a stogie.
Uh-huh.
Since they're about to disappear, we had our first dram and stogie when they first appeared.
Oh, cool.
So
We had 7 planets that night.
yeah, it was
Couldn't
amazing.
see all 7 because Neptune's a little further out, but it was there.
Yeah.
Cool. I need to find some time in the next few days to actually get out of the light pollution and take some time to see it while it's around. I can notice a few of them on my drive to the work because it's still very dark on my drive to work in the morning. So you can see 3 of them pretty clearly all in a row, which has been a lot of fun. But to see more than that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, let's look at that. Yeah, I just looked at the map. You're directly north of Mount Hood. You're about what,
Correct.
40 miles?
We're sandwiched between Mount Hood and Mount Adams, right?
Wow.
Like right on the other side of the range shadow from the Cascade Range.
And you're right on the river.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Awesome.
Somebody should come up with a double mountain kind of a name.
Yeah, that's why Double Mountain Brewery, right? You can literally
Yeah.
see both mountains from the, well, I'm not sure if you can see both mountains from the brewer house downtown, but you certainly can. They actually have a storage facility and a place where they process all their apples for their apple cider. That's like kitty corner across this 4-way stop next to us. So you can definitely see both of them from their facility.
Wonderful.
And hilariously, having nothing to do with the show Twin Peaks, we have a burger joint just down the road called Twin Peaks because you can see both mountains. And I didn't even know that there was a show until people would come to visit and they'd ask where the closest food is. And I'd tell them they could get a burger at Twin Peaks. And they're like, oh, is it like a theme restaurant? I'm like, what are you talking about? It's just there's 2 mountains and there's a burger shack down the road. It's actually at the end. We're next to the Hood River Airport. So we occasionally, most of the time, it's like farm planes and tourist planes and stuff that take off behind us. But there's some fun things. One, our backyard neighbor is the Western Automotive and Aeronautical Museum, WAM. And the cool part about WAM is that all of the cars and planes in there still run. So they have a full team of mechanics that keep all of those vehicles and planes running. And so occasionally you'll see a whole squadron of biplanes that go by. And then even more rarely, there's an occasional private jet that comes and goes. I don't think it belongs to anybody here. I think it's because we have proximity to one of the handful of places you can ski all year round on. But yeah, it's a very strange conflagration of a lot of things here where our little distillery is.
That's delightful. Well, I'm gonna have to jump off, Steve. I've got a meeting at church I've got to get to, but it was delightful meeting you, and good luck in your ventures. I hope. Actually, I'm gonna be in Austin that weekend too, Steve. My sister-in-law is having a birthday celebration. We'll be on the lake that day. Maybe I can link up to you guys later in the afternoon. So
The show starts at 4:30.
4:30. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much, John. It was wonderful to get to meet you, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed these.
Yeah, hope I'll see you in the end of March, and by then the snow will be gone too.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming, Caitlin.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Look forward to seeing you at the gala.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, Slunjava.
Slunjava.
Bye. And again, congratulations, Master Distiller.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Have a good day.